Good evening, fam. This is Paul, the Platinum Prince. So, alright. Tonight will be a different kind of discussion video. I normally hesitate to do this, but this game has enough hype pre Kickstarter that I really want to cover this. I watched the Q&A. I'm interested in this game. I do have my concerns / speculation I want to put into. Start off the name. What we'll be talking about is Sorcery Contested Realm. I'll watch the Q&A twice. I wrote down some of the questions that intrigued me the most, their responses, my feedback on those questions, my speculation on Kickstarter, where it's going to go. And keep in mind, guys, I'll be upfront. Yes, I'm bullish for this game. But also keep in mind, I do not come from a heavy MTG style background, which is what Sorcery, I'll get into that, which is what Sorcery based off MTG, D&D, you flesh and blood lovers would love Sorcery as well with that kind of vibe. So I'm saying this because it's easier for me to understand Pokemon related games, like, I love MetaZoo. Akora is similar-esque to like Yu-Gi-Oh-ish. Stuff like that. That's what's easier for me to get. So when I say my speculation and critique, keep in mind I'm not a hardcore long-term MTG style player. But I will give my feedback. So without further ado, let's start off with, as you guys watch my videos know, I give thanks. So first things first, thank you to Eric Olson, the creator of Sorcery, and Simon for doing the Q&A. Eric is the head of Grinding Gear Studios, and you know that studio if you play Path of Exile, a very popular video game. And I'm doing a little bit of background before I get into the Q&A per se. So why does this matter? What separates Eric apart from all these other Kickstarter TCGs, and yes, this will be a Kickstarter on March 15th, is that Eric is actually a game developer. He has years and years of experience, and his work definitely speaks for itself. Path of Exile is an awesome game. It is on the caliber of Diablo. I personally like Diablo more because back in my college days, I got to play Diablo 3 all the time with my friends. Yeah, I'm showing my age, but whatever. I had a blast, and so, I've dabbled a little bit to Path of Exile. So knowing how amazing that went, I do have faith in Eric and his craftsmanship. And also thank you to Simon for being a great community manager, and within our Discord, just keep everything orderly in peace, answering my questions, everyone else's questions, being supportive of people coming in, people who've been there. Appreciate that. And a special thank you to you, Emberleaf, for answering all my gameplay questions a couple months ago. I had a lot because I was not sure exactly how this game played out, but you answered a lot of my stuff, so thank you. So let's start off with the basics. Even guys, not my background, but I will do my best. And this is, and I'll give my, we'll go along with this. So what exactly is Sorcery Contested Realm? Right. So this is Eric's response. It's a retro style card game with the tactical square grids, and the cards are unique for hand painted art. All right. So here's what this game has going for it. Gameplay design is very cool. So the best way I can relate to this from what I've seen, haven't played the tabletop simulator, which you can do that, is if you guys like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and those of you who are Final Fantasy fans, it has like that has that grid-like system. You can kind of picture like Sorcery like that. I'm not saying it's a direct game to game, but I'm just trying to give you as a reference point. But what's really neat is I have the link below in the video. Is also the artwork has a very retro, unique style that I've not seen in any other game. So that is a cool thing about Sorcery, is the unique gameplay and unique art. There are plenty of people in the Discord who actually are just infatuated with the art itself. I personally love looking at it too, and I don't really know much about the game, like mechanic wise, all that. So it is very neat. He does have MTG artists on staff, D&D artists, and there's potentially more to come. But Simon and Eric are keeping things under wraps, and that'll be a discussion point. But it is It is very unique. There's nothing else like Sorcery gameplay and art-wise that I have seen. So that is a positive indicator for this Kickstarter, is when you have something not done before, people will swarm to it. So there was a question asked about what about Sorcery 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now? What is this? Is this just a side gig, or are you going to go full time? So Eric has said, sorry, my notes, has said this is a high quality product. He plans putting his full time effort in. He even described it himself as a labor of love. And of course, with feedback from the community like us, he's always looking to improve. So here's what I do like. I do like that Eric is one that's looking for Kaizen. For you don't know what that means, that's Japanese for continuous improvement. So while Eric has been working on the game for over 3 years now, and the artwork a similar time span, he is putting a lot of effort into making Sorcery a great game for the long haul. Now, in terms of answering the question, my personal critique is that a lot of these other more so Kickstarter startup, like even Flesh and Blood, like when we had Welcome to Wrath Alpha, they have said, oh, next is Arcane Rising, Crucible of War, or with MetaZoo you've had Cryptid Nation, then you got to CN1, Nightfall, now we're on Wilderness. They give you a timeline of the sets to come. As far as I have seen, Eric and Simon keep reiterating that the focus and laser and attention is on the Kickstarter. So to me, to not really hear about moving forward is a little tough, because I'm used to seeing a lot of, especially these newer games or even current games like MTG, you know basically what's coming out for all of 2022 with plus or minus a couple surprises. You know how Wizards is, I'm not going to even go there. Pokemon, you got the sets, the specialty sets, the main sets, as you already spoke about. So with Sorcery, he's basically Eric is the vibe I'm getting is that based on the demand and hunger for the Kickstarter, he's gonna base off the community of what will future sets be in 2023, 2024, 25, so forth, so forth. This is a one set per year game. I'll get more into that later in this discussion, but as of now, I don't want to say so much as a negative, but it is somewhat disappointing to see that that's as of now it's just the Kickstarter. We don't really know what's coming next. There's excitement in that aspect, but also those of you who are more investor focused, like that is a big thing to do. I'll be open. I am more of the investor of these TCGs. Especially if you come from a Quora and MetaZoo Discords, you know exactly what I do. You guys know exactly how I ask questions, and I ask the toughest questions. And I only do that to TCGs I actually really like. You guys know how active I don't really have an interest. I would not be wasting my time. So yes, Eric, Simon, all of you in Sorcery Discord, I do have a strong interest in this. So next question was, excuse me guys, sorry I've gone through my notes, I apologize. What are the challenges that Eric and Simon foresee? So one thing they noted was that the rules of a game. So there's a lot of playtesting going on. There's 400 cards in this first set, and no, they don't plan on making any other set this big, because this is like, they describe it as, let's show to the world we are Kickstarter. This is huge. Over 400 cards is a lot to experiment and play with. So the way I took it as that, as people play and learn the game, they could be like, oh no, this is too overpowered. This is the Black Lotus of Sorcery. No, they're not purposely engineering a card to be the Black Lotus, but they are. But they can't, like any other TCG. There's no way to predict what players get creative and find as the meta. So it will be interesting to see how Eric will adapt this. Will there be, say, a reserve list or restricted list, ban list? Since Eric and Simon are hardcore MTG lovers, I would expect something of that nature to come. But as in right now, we'll just have to see how it is. So scaling is another thing he mentioned. So this goes to like how much in demand sorcery will be. So that goes to show that if the demand is more localized niche, not saying it will be, I'm just giving you hypotheticals, then it will be easier to accommodate versus since this game is going out globally, by the way, if the whole world says, oh my gosh, I love sorcery, I want sorcery, this is where Eric says he's going to have to adapt and see, well, how am I going to have facilities here, tournaments, kits, etc., so forth. And I know, as you guys know, I love MetaZoo. MetaZoo is still very infant, and they still struggle with scaling because their demand is so high for MetaZoo. You guys have seen my MetaZoo videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm only using this as a reference point. I'm no way trying to say MetaZoo or Flesh and Blood or these games are better than Sorcery. When I talk about them, I just use what I know as a reference point. I just want to clarify that. And they reiterated that the Kickstarter is the main goal in that question as well. So there is a lot of wait and see that I'm getting the vibe from Eric Simon. On the one hand, I obviously understand they don't want to jump over and make all these grand master plans, and then the demand is not what they intended. At the same time, though, since it's 2022, anything that is remotely popular, to be honest, will go viral. Will be talked about by influencers. Will go crazy because I would say both Eric and Simon mentioned the organic growth of, say, 1993 Magic, where the players fell in love with the cards and then Magic just boomed on its own. I can understand that. I see where they're coming from, but we're in the days, like I reiterate, that where just natural organic word of mouth, slow spread is not really a thing. It's more as when sorcery gets into our hands, if the players, community, influencers, whatnot, streamers love it, it's going to take off like crazy. That's just how it is these days. I'm not sugarcoating that at all, and I'm not saying that to be spiteful, but I think the days of you just going or anybody going to an LGS and be like, oh, I think this game's interesting, and then just word of mouth spreads and it only grows slowly, those days are long gone. This is 2022. We are looking at, almost everyone's looking the fast money, the hottest things. And yes, there will be a lot of, because a lot of the Discord, as far as I've seen, is actually a lot more player focused than it is investor focused. I'm one of the few, I'd say, in the Discord as I know of that really care about investment. So could you argue I'm a minority in a lot of these opinions and statements? Specifically in the Discord, probably. But I would bet plenty of money that there's those probably either not in the Discord or in Discord that have heavy plans to buy a lot of sorcery, sit on it, but we don't know about it. Keep in mind, guys, there are people who may even say that they're actually a player when really they just want to invest. You don't know what someone's true intentions are. There is a lot of love. I do see the player base for sorcery growing, booming, expanding, just like how Flesh and Blood is. Flesh and Blood is great for the players. They definitely have the collectors, but it's not as much collector-investor focused as it was in the beginning. So I'll get more into the collector-investor side towards the last side of my speech, but I definitely see the player base taking off for sorcery. So set rotation. So like I said, that was the question. What one set a year, is that going to be too tiny? So here's what Eric and Simon's responses were. It takes a lot of work to make this game. They need the time. So I like how Simon was interesting. It's not so much of like curing people's boredom. It's more of like giving the LGS's distributors the time to have people enjoy the game. So yes, one set a year, and then that's where their people will get to play test, experiment. And once we're past the first set, you'll be able with the first two. He says, if, like I said earlier, if there is bans, restrictions, overpowered cards, there will be limitations. And actually, I personally, I'm glad they asked this for me. I asked specifically about, what about tournaments? So the way they described it to me is that this is kitchen table game. Those of you just not familiar with that term, that basically means casual play. He said if the players do want there is room for competitive play and deep strategy. And Eric specifically said, if the demand comes about where tournaments want to rise, he will adapt. My counterpoint to that, though, is this: even on Flesh and Blood, Metazu, the two newest pups in the TCG world, that now Metazu is about to have a $250,000 tournament. Flesh and Blood has already had like $10,000, $50,000 tournaments. Apparently $1 million tournament coming soonish this year. Don't quote me on it, but I've heard. I'm sorry, I'm not as up to date on that game as I should be. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, if Eric and Simon, if Sorcery will stay for the long haul, just staying as, say, a casual game, in my opinion, is really not going to cut it. The players, I understand you guys want the players to say we want to make a competitive scene. I'm just trying to reiterate that for this game to have a long-lasting haul, in today's world, it's got to get to a point where, you know what, I want to become a pro Sorcery player, like how there's pro Flesh and Blood players. Metazu is getting super competitive. Even though people joke no one plays Metazu, they're doing $250,000 tournaments. Their first place card is $30,000. So I do definitely see room and potential for Sorcery to do this. And of course, tournaments will help with the longevity of the player base, collector, investor base, and obviously having, exclusive play mats, artist sign-ups, meet and greets, those kind of things. I personally would argue tournaments are almost as essential as the game itself. Even though I know, like in 2020 lockdown, there wasn't much going on with like MTV basically cut tournaments in. I don't know if and when they're bringing that back. I haven't followed MTG tournaments, but I do know that you guys will probably focus on that more than what you think once this game takes off. So, and a question I asked, I was actually surprised they answered this one. I asked, what is the name of the first set? I thought it would have been just a simple, oh, this is Alpha. So the name of it is actually Sorcery Contested Realm. What Eric and Simon are basically explain is that they're letting the players be creative and use the imagination of the art and the text of the game to give it a title. So I find that very interesting that they're letting a lot of the power of the community to be creative with the meta. Instead of, there's like rules to follow the game, of course, how to play the grids, attacks, and whatnot. But the lore will be built around of players interacting with each other, the art of the cards. So that to me is intriguing. I do see like people even making actually like Sorcery lore books on their own, getting that published based on their experience. Kind of like how there's I don't really play much D&D, so excuse me to say this, but like when people are like dungeon masters in D&Ds and there's a story to go along with your campaign, I do see something similar coming out of Sorcery. Especially, I don't think outside of D&D, nobody really does that kind of thing. So that will definitely be interesting to see how that comes about in the future. And also asked about post Kickstarter. I said, well, what are you going to do with leftover boxes, extra boxes? So Eric and Simon did say that Kickstarter will have the exclusive products for you guys, for everyone to bid. There will be extra product in case of damage, shipping issues, but they'll also give some to content creators. So I do know, and those of you who follow Alpha Investments, he basically referred to Sorcery without saying the name when he said retro style art in New Zealand. Now, I've tried to fish around. I know Simon's too clever on the way I ask questions, but there is no confirmation of Sorcery collabing with Alpha Investments officially. A lot of speculation, and Rudy definitely seems interested, but we can't just jump on board and think, oh, we're going to have, like, well, we have Flesh and Blood Metazu kits, there's going to be Sorcery kits. Personally, I think Alpha Investments is much far too busy to actually take on a third TCG. I would say he would if Sorcery takes off, since he likes the vibe, obviously, he will mention it and probably show off some cards or boxes, but to actually do promotional kit and sales and all that, I'm doubtful, just because of how busy he is and how much logistics that would be. I could be totally wrong. That is just my speculation, because everybody knows if Alpha Investments mentions a new TCG, dollar signs are going to light up and people are going to be buying the crap out of it. It just is what it is. That's what happens with Alpha Investment people. So, now, I want to get into Kickstarter. So, this is, in my opinion, very hard to evaluate. I spent a couple of days thinking about this. I will give you guys the scenarios I think, the scenarios that I think either would occur, which one's more likely, and what does it mean for the future of the game. So, Kickstarter. What is the print run? So this is the first I have ever seen for a alpha game of any kind, and it's especially a Kickstarter, to say print to demand. Yes. However many boxes we want as a community, we can get. You want only one box? That's fine. Just open one, try it out, or just keep it sealed, just for decor. Sure. You want to order 100? Eric and Simon are happy with it. What does that mean? Like, financially. So, the biggest question me and others have been thinking is, so if it's print to demand, will there be whales that say, you know what, I want 100. This guy says 200. Give me 500, 1,000. And there could be a huge print run of this. Oh, by the way, I asked around for what is the price of the booster box, and there's also precursor decks. Nothing confirmed. This is a boutique style game. I would, if I had to guess, I'm thinking, because this is the art, it does not look cheap at all to produce, and the style is very unique. It might be $150 a box. I could be totally wrong, but this does not look like anything very cheap to produce. Like I said, that's just my speculation. It is what it is. But regardless, back to the print run demand. So going back to how Alpha Investments has mentioned Sorcery without the name, I foresee a scenario where whales will be like, all right, let's order as much as we can. And there's talks about it only being available for 2 weeks, potentially a month. It hasn't been decided yet. But still, 2 weeks is a tighter time frame. But with anybody but honestly, with Kickstarters, I know Sorcery will get funded. Just the fact that it is a Kickstarter. That's not to down or scoff at them. It's just how it is these days. That when people see Kickstarter, they see the quick flip, and they don't care who's behind the game, what the cards are, or if there's even a game to begin with. I mean, that's the truth. That is the reality of it. I do like it that they mentioned there won't be a green K on this. There'll be a distinct way to differentiate Kickstarter whenever they do also the next set, which I think Eric mentioned will be a revised set. It'll have, I believe it'll just be the same cards as far as I know, but I could be totally wrong there. So here's the thing. This is where it gets a little tricky. So the one scenario is there's a bunch of whales that buy, and let's say it's a $50,000 print run of the boxes. I know it's kind of extreme for Alpha, but just bear with me for the scenario. If there is that many, it's great to have that demand, but secondary market wise, will necessarily be free tendies? I don't know. 50,000 for a first run is huge. Now, with over 400 cards in the set, there's a lot to chase. I know Simon has specifically talked to me about, don't just think about print run of the boxes, also what's in the boxes. I understand what he's coming from, like Flesh and Blood Fable, to get the heart of Fanal any Fable, I believe, is around 1 in every 40 boxes or so. That's the ratio. What Sorcery has as a chase is a unique card. That's I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the tier to get. I'm not quite sure how many will it take to open, how many boxes will it take to open that. But I say, in my opinion, box print run is huge, especially in the very first set. Because if you see a 50,000 demand for this, then you have to also evaluate, all right, if it will be the free tendies land. If it's not, will that turn away investors, saying you will have the player base. By having that many, you definitely show there's a strong interest, and there'll be plenty of people to play the game. But if there's not much financial value for the investors, you will have a lot of people who will just maybe buy a box or just buy singles and call it a day. Now here's the other scenario. I'm going to go with this one just because of how times are. Let me explain. So printed, and Christo actually replied this to me on Discord. Printed demand could also turn off people. They're like, oh, you know what? If I can get as much as I want, that doesn't feel special. Therefore, I may just get 1 or 2 or none at all. Or just wait for the good market. With that said, that means it could be maybe only 10, 15,000 print run. If the print run is small like that, then they'll be very expensive boxes and hard to get a hold of. And with especially people on Whatnot who love to open up any TCG, they catch on fire. You'll be seeing people, give me all your Sorcery Kickstarter products. I will pay you $1,000, $2,000. Think I'm kidding? See the Core on Metazu behind me? Just ask around how much Whatnot streamers are paying for a Core on Metazu Kickstarters. And they're not afraid to drop the big cash. There are people willing to spend $80,000 to $100,000 if you have the right amount of boxes. So I do see Sorcery. I do see Whatnot people. I will be telling people on Whatnot about Sorcery. I believe I already mentioned it at the Orlando Collecticon. So could you consider that maybe a little selfish or trying to fill an agenda? Maybe, but hey, I mean, if other people are going to do it too. So, and I'd rather give them a heads up. So, some people do like to be aware of what's coming up, what's going to be fresh. And of course, if those Whatnot people get in, Sorcery will gain more attention and it will show success for the game as a whole, that they have Whatnot streams occurring. So I am now starting to lean toward a small print run, because of everybody may think, oh, because I can order as much as you want, I really don't think it will be as special. Also, we are in a very turbulent time with economy right now. Dow's dropping. Not as many people have cash really to float around. And another big aspect is there's so much out there. You got Magic, Pokemon, Flesh, Metazu, 50, 60 other Kickstarters. Sorcery is great. But it's squeezing between so many things that it may get just overshadowed a lot, because people have their eyes everywhere. It's like this, that, everywhere. No, under, no, on top, no. It is hard to choose, especially those who like to speculate. Now, there are games that are coming out that honestly they look like trash. They are trash. I'm not going to say names, but it is easy to differentiate. But even with that being said, there's just so much out there to put your eyes on. It's overwhelming, and the average consumer may miss Sorcery just because Eric and Simon do post on Facebook and on Discord. They don't really have yet the strongest market outreach, since they're still in the very beginning phases. The people who do talk about Sorcery definitely talk high of it, and I see why. It is a beautiful game. Now, having said all this, What's even more crucial than Kickstarter is, let's say, whether it's a big run or a small print run, this will be the only time where we know print run is by looking at the Kickstarter. Simon has confirmed for me that from here on out, when they come out with a revised expansion set, all so forth, print run will not be public. And also, it won't be like, if you guys are thinking like Y Shorts where they do a one and done print run, or some Pokemon sets where it's maybe one or two waves and that's it. No, since it's one game a year, it won't be like, oh my gosh, I can't get it the day one, week one, I'm out. No, there'll be, after the Kickstarter, whatever sets come out, there'll be plenty to share the love. Now, this is critical. What do I mean? So what I'm afraid of is that when Simon and Eric say, do you see the success of Kickstarter, and say, you know what, so many people are demanding this, let's up the print run. I'm making up a number, 200,000. They got to be careful, because since it's only one set a year, if they overprint any of these sets, you will see tanking of prices. And I would say that is the risk of putting your eggs in one set per year, in my opinion, is that if you make a mistake, it's going to be very, very hard to recover. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they're not thinking this through. I'm just giving you my opinion of giving you my thoughts of what would happen if they would take a misstep. Especially now, it's going to be hard with so much competition out there. They really need to stand out. We also asked around, how long will it take post Kickstarter to get the box delivered? Simon couldn't really give us a straightforward date and answer. Realistically, I know majority Kickstarter takes about 6 months, maybe a little longer, for it to actually come to your hands. So keep in mind, if you put in $10,000, $20,000, whatever amount you can afford, you're going to have that tied up. And of course, after Kickstarter is over, and I know it's going to happen, there will be pre-orders on eBay for those who missed out Kickstarters. I am very positive people will sell Sorcery Contested Realm boxes on eBay for free tendies before they come to their hands. And people will buy that. And they will get screwed, because either there will be shipping delay, or people, the price increase again. That's why I would not really recommend pre-ordering Kickstarter products from eBay. I would highly advise against it. Now, once it actually comes into market and there is a secondary market, then yes, of course, buy your boxes, cards, pre-constructed decks as needed. I will definitely be supporting this game. It is a lot harder to predict, though. With printed demand, one set a year, what will this really look like long term? Simon and Eric did say there are surprises. There's a lot of things not known by the community that could be a definitely game changer. So I'm only speculating on what we have been given as a community. And I do my best with these assumptions. Realistically, as a Kickstarter, even though we're in harder times, I don't really see them getting anything less than $100,000. Especially, it's actually a great game of quality. There are trash games that have raised $300,000 to $400,000. I'm only putting the $100,000 just to give myself wiggle room. It's going to get at least that. It also depends on the price of the boxes. Of course, Eric and Simon have to be careful. If you make it too expensive, then you're kind of making it a investors only things. If you make it too cheap, that's where other people would walk away. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I am excited for this. I do love the retro style art. I enjoyed the group. Lots of neat thinking, back and forth discussions. Honestly, can't wait for it to be. It's also going to be on March 15th. That's when the Kickstarter is. That's the Ides of March. Those of you who are history buffs, that's the day Caesar was assassinated. So I think that's kind of ironic, retro, dark style game. That's Julius Caesar. Just personal humor. And also, the other thing I mentioned, it is a game definitely meant for older players. This is not like for kids. I don't see this being it's not like Matazoo Pokemon where little Johnny and Susie, are gonna play this. From what I see, this is a little bit of a learning. Nothing it's hard to learn, but it's more for in-depth strategy type game, and the artwork definitely has a more mature style to it. So this is definitely going to be like Flesh and Blood, where it's more 16 and up type of field. So in terms of drawing younger audiences, it may not really be the case, but the adults who do love it and it does well financially will have invested. That's all I have, guys. Have a great night.